Ambassador Jin'ei walked through the massive corridors of the Galactic Council building on Nexus Prime. The walls were made of crystal that sparkled like diamonds, and the ceiling was so high she could barely see it. She had been Earth's representative, here for 3 years now, and she thought she understood how things worked. Today felt different, though. The alien representatives were whispering more than usual. The tall, lizard-like Vorthak kept looking at her with their yellow eyes, then turning away quickly. The floating energy beings called ethereals were pulsing with colors she had never seen before. Even the rock-like Zephyrians seemed more rigid than normal. Jin'ei took her seat in the small section marked for Earth. Around her sat representatives from 847 different worlds and species. Humanity was still new here, only 50 years since first contact. Their 12 colony worlds were tiny compared to the vast empires of the older species. "The session will now begin," announced High Counselor Vextar. He was a Vorthak, his green scales catching the light as he moved. His voice echoed through the chamber, translated instantly into every language by the Council's machines. Jin'ei pulled up the day's agenda on her tablet. Most items looked routine: trade agreements, shipping routes, resource allocations. Nothing that would normally require much debate. She relaxed in her chair, expecting a boring day. "We move now to item 47, Vextar continued. Directive 2847, concerning optimal resource distribution across Council territories. The wording seemed strange to Jin'ei. Usually, trade directives were much more specific. This one was written in language so vague it could mean almost anything. She frowned and tried to access the full text, but her clearance level wasn't high enough. Around the chamber, representatives began voting. The process was quick, too quick for such an important-sounding directive. Species after species cast their approval. The Vorthak voted yes, the Ethereals voted yes, the Zephyrians voted yes. Something cold formed in Jin'ei's stomach. She raised her hand to request more information about the directive, but Vextar ignored her. The voting continued. Every single species voted to approve. Finally, Vextar's eyes turned to the human section. "Earth?" Jin'ei stood up slowly. The translation matrix was beginning to decode the directive's true language now, and what she saw made her blood freeze. This wasn't about trade or resources. The careful legal language was hiding something terrible. "I request a full reading of Directive 2847, she said, her voice carrying across the silent chamber. "The directive has been translated and distributed according to protocol," Vextar replied smoothly. But Jin'ei's tablet was now showing her the real meaning. Words like optimal resource distribution actually meant elimination of wasteful populations. The phrase territorial reorganization meant planetary bombardment, and evolutionary dead ends meant humanity. She looked around the chamber with new eyes. Every alien representative was watching her with expressions she now recognized. Not curiosity or friendship, but the cold calculation of predators studying prey. "Earth votes against Directive 2847, Jin'ei declared, her voice stronger than she felt. A ripple of what might have been laughter passed through the chamber. Vextar's scaled lips pulled back in what humans would have called a smile, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Noted. The motion passes by a vote of 847 to 1. The chamber erupted in sounds, hisses, electronic pulses, grinding noises that passed for celebration among the various species. Jin'ei sat down heavily, her mind racing. They had just voted to destroy humanity, and they were celebrating. Her tablet chimed with an urgent message from the outer colonies. New Sol on Kepler 442b was reporting strange energy readings in their star system. New Busan was detecting unknown ships approaching their defensive perimeter. The reports were coming in faster now. Every human colony was seeing the same thing. Jin'ei tried to stand but found her way blocked by 2 massive Vorthak guards. Their claws gleamed in the crystal light. "I'm afraid you'll need to remain here." "For debriefing," Vextar said, not bothering to hide his satisfaction anymore. "The Council has some questions about Earth's compliance with the new directive." But Jin'ei had one advantage they didn't know about. Her tablet was still connected to the quantum communication network. With hands that barely shook, She composed a message to Lunar Command on Earth, just 3 words that she hoped would be enough. Her finger hovered over the send button as the first reports came in. New Seoul had gone silent. New Busan was under attack. Millions of humans were dying while she sat in this chamber surrounded by their murderers. She pressed send just as the Vorthak guards reached for her. The message went out across space faster than light, racing toward Earth with humanity's last hope, contained in 3 simple words. Phoenix Protocol activated. The aliens thought they had won. They believed humanity was just another weak species, to be eliminated when convenient. Jin'e smiled grimly as the guards dragged her away. They were about to learn how wrong they were. In deep space, ancient systems were already beginning to wake up. Admiral Zhou was drinking his morning coffee when the message arrived at Lunar Command. He was 73 years old and had served Earth's Navy for 50 years, but he had never seen anything like this. 3 words on his screen made his hands shake. Phoenix Protocol activated. He set down his coffee cup and stared at the message. Phoenix Protocol was something the old-timers whispered about at the Naval Academy. Most people thought it was just a story. Zhou knew better. His grandfather had been one of the men who built it. The message was from Ambassador Jin'e on Nexus Prime. If she was sending this code, it meant the Council had turned against humanity. It meant war was coming. It meant Earth's children scattered across 12 worlds were about to die. Zhou pressed his thumb against a red scanner on his desk. A hidden panel opened, revealing 3 key slots. He would need help for what came. Next, 30 minutes later, Admiral He Jin arrived from Mars Command. She was younger than Zhou but came from one of Earth's oldest families. Behind her came General Taiho from the Ground Defense Force. His family line went back to the first colonists. "Is it real?" He Jin asked, her face pale. "My grandfather showed me the locations when I was 12, Zhou replied. "Made me swear I would only use this knowledge if humanity faced extinction." The 3 officers placed their keys in the slots and turned them together. Deep beneath the Antarctic ice, machines that had waited for 200 years began to wake up. Computers older than the Galactic Council started running programs written by people who had never seen an alien ship. The first reports came in 20 minutes later. Captain Sung Ho was on patrol near Jupiter when his sensors went crazy. "Admiral, you need to see this. The mining platform on Europa, it's changing." Zhou watched the video feed in amazement. The mining platform he had visited dozens of times was unfolding like a flower made of metal. Hidden sections emerged from what had looked like storage tanks. Weapon systems rose from concealed bays. In 10 minutes, the platform had become something that looked more like a battleship than a mining facility. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're getting similar reports from Titan, Ganymede, and the belt mining stations." More screens lit up around the command center. Across the solar system, structures that had seemed ordinary were revealing their true nature. Asteroid mining ships were growing additional hulls from hidden compartments. Space stations were extending massive weapon arrays that had been disguised as communication dishes. The most shocking transformation was happening to the moon itself. Zhou watched through Lunar Command's external cameras as cracks appeared across the lunar surface. The cracks were perfectly straight lines forming geometric patterns. Sections of the moon's surface began to rise, revealing chambers underneath that had been hidden for centuries. "What is this?" He-Jin whispered. Zhou pulled up files from the ancient archive. "Our ancestors knew this day would come. They prepared for it." Every major construction project for the last 300 years had a hidden purpose. The mining operations, the space stations, even the lunar colonies, they were all covers for building the ancient fleet. Captain So-min called in from the pilot training facility. "Admiral, our fighters, they're not what we thought they were." Zhou had known So-min since she was a cadet. She was one of Earth's best pilots, calm under pressure. But her voice sounded amazed and frightened at the same time. "Explain," Zhou ordered. "The ships we've been training in, they have systems we never knew about. When I activated the emergency protocols, panels opened that I've never seen before. The engine readings are impossible. According to these displays, my fighter can travel faster than light without using the Council's hyperspace gates. Around the solar system, similar discoveries were happening everywhere. Pilots were finding weapons that could punch through any known armor. Engineers were discovering power sources that produced more energy than entire planets. Scientists were reading technical manuals for technology that was centuries ahead of anything the Council possessed. Du Yun's console chimed with an incoming message from the outer colonies. It was Dr. Ji Hoon from New Seoul. The transmission was weak and full of static. "Admiral, they hit us hard, but we're still fighting. Some kind of weapons cache opened up near the city. The rebels are using equipment I've never seen before. We're holding them off." "The colonies have hidden defenses too?" Hyejin asked. Du Yun nodded. "Every human settlement was built on top of ancient fleet supply depots. Our ancestors scattered weapons and ships across known space. They were preparing for a war that might not come for centuries." As reports continued flooding in, the scale of the deception became clear. For 300 years, humanity had been building two civilizations. One was visible, the peaceful traders and explorers the Council knew about. The other was hidden, a war machine designed to fight enemies with technology far beyond human understanding. The most amazing part was that it had worked. The Council had watched humanity for 50 years and never suspected. They saw farmers and miners and scientists. They never saw the warriors those farmers had been training to become. "Orders, sir," Captain Somin asked over the communication. System Du Yun looked at the displays showing human ships emerging from their hiding places across the galaxy. Ships that shouldn't exist, carrying weapons that violated known physics, crewed by people who had been secretly preparing for this war their entire lives. "Phoenix Protocol is now active," he announced to every human ship and station. "All units, prepare for combat operations. Let's show the Council what happens when they threaten Earth's children." The ancient fleet was awake, and it was very, very angry. The Council fleet arrived at Earth's outer defenses, expecting an easy victory. Admiral Kethvar of the Vorthak commanded 200 warships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. His scales gleamed with satisfaction as he studied the tactical displays. Earth looked defenseless, just a few patrol ships and some mining platforms scattered around the system. "Begin the bombardment," he ordered. "Make it quick. The Council wants this finished before other species start asking questions." But as his ships moved forward, something impossible happened. The small human patrol vessels didn't run away. Instead, they accelerated directly toward his massive fleet. Captain Hyunwoo's ship, barely the size of a Council shuttlecraft, opened fire first. Kethvar watched in amazement as his flagship's shields collapsed under the tiny ship's weapons. "Impossible! Run a full scan on that vessel." His tactical officer's voice was confused. "Sir, the readings show it's using primitive fusion engines and basic projectile weapons, but our shields are gone." "The readings are wrong," Kethvar hissed. "Those aren't the same humans we've been watching." More human ships appeared from behind asteroids and space stations. Each one was impossibly small compared to the Council vessels, but their weapons tore through alien armor like it was made of paper. Captain Hyunwoo's fighters moved with speed and precision that made no sense according to known physics. On his bridge, Hyunwoo smiled grimly as he watched Council ships explode around him. His fighters' real capabilities were finally unleashed after years of hiding. The engines didn't just burn fuel, they bent space itself. The weapons didn't just fire projectiles, they converted matter directly into energy. "All units, follow my lead," he broadcast to the other human pilots. "Let's show them what Earth's children can really do." Meanwhile, on the surface of Kepler 442b, Dr. Ji-hoon was organizing the survivors of New Seoul. The Council's attack had been brutal, but it hadn't been designed for quick destruction. The aliens wanted humans to suffer slowly, to serve as examples to other species who might resist Council authority. This cruelty would prove to be their greatest mistake. Ji-hoon gathered the survivors in the ruins of the city's central plaza. Men, women, and children who had lost everything looked to him for hope. But instead of despair, he saw something else in their eyes: anger. "They think they can break us," he told the crowd. "They've studied our public records, our peaceful colonies, our trade agreements, but they never studied our real history. Humans don't break. We break our chains." As if responding to his words, the ground beneath their feet began to vibrate. Hidden doors opened in buildings, that had looked completely normal the day before. Weapon caches that had waited decades for activation finally revealed themselves. The equipment that emerged was unlike anything the colonists had ever seen. Rifles that fired bursts of pure energy, armor that could turn invisible, communication devices that worked across interstellar distances without using council networks. Young Yun Su, barely 18 years old, picked up one of the energy rifles. It felt perfectly balanced in her hands, as if it had been made specifically for her. When she aimed it at a piece of rubble, the weapon somehow knew what she wanted to hit. The rubble vanished completely. "How is this possible?" asked Teacher Minho, an elderly man who had been running the colony school. Ji-hoon was reading from a data pad that had emerged from one of the weapon caches. "Our ancestors planned for this day. Every human settlement was built on top of ancient fleet supply depots. We've been living above the largest hidden weapons cache in the galaxy. Across the colony, similar scenes were playing out. Farmers were discovering that their barns contained fighter jets. Miners were finding that their equipment sheds held enough explosives to level mountains. Even the children's playground had concealed weapon systems that could shoot down orbital bombardment platforms. The Council forces on Kepler 442b had expected to face defenseless civilians. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to appear out of nowhere, armed with weapons that their technology couldn't even detect properly. Captain Vorth of the Zephyrian crystal ships was the first to report the impossible situation to Admiral Kethvar. "Sir, the human colony is fighting back. Their weapons they're cutting through our crystal hulls like they were made of glass." "That's impossible," Kethvar replied. "Zephyrian crystal is the hardest substance known to science." "Tell that to the 3 ships I just lost," Vorth shot back. Similar reports were coming in from across the galaxy. Every human world that had been attacked was fighting back with technology that shouldn't exist. The Council's carefully planned genocide was turning into something they had never expected, a real war. Back in Earth's solar system, Captain Hyunwoo's small fleet had destroyed half of Admiral Kethvar's force. The remaining Council ships were trying to retreat, but the human vessels were faster than anything the aliens had ever seen. "This is impossible," Kethvar muttered, watching his fleet burn around him. "Humans are supposed to be a primitive species. Where did they get this technology?" His communication officer looked up from her station with fear in her crystalline eyes. "Sir, I'm receiving reports from across Council space. Humans everywhere are fighting back. And sir, they're winning." For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Kethvar felt something he had never experienced before: fear of humans. The Council had made a terrible mistake. They had attacked a species that had spent centuries preparing for exactly this moment. And now Earth's children were showing the galaxy what happened when you threatened their family. What the Galactic Council thought would be a quick extermination became a war that shook the entire galaxy. Across hundreds of star systems, human colonies that should have been defenseless were fighting back with weapons that made no sense. Admiral Zhou stood on the bridge of his flagship, Soul's Vengeance, and watched something that should have been impossible. His ship was passing through a Zephyrian crystal cruiser like it was made of water. The alien vessel's silicon-based hull was turning against itself, breaking apart from the inside. "How are we doing this?" asked Commander Yunji, staring at the tactical display. "Exotic matter hull," Doyun explained calmly. "Our ancestors discovered that certain materials can exist in multiple dimensions at once. We're not just flying through space, we're flying through the spaces between space." The Zephyrian ship exploded behind them, its crystal structure unable to handle the dimensional stress. Around them, more human vessels were demonstrating capabilities that terrified the oldest species in the galaxy. Captain Somin's fighter squadron moved through, a formation of ethereal energy ships like deadly ghosts. The aliens were beings of pure energy, but the human weapons could touch them directly. Her quantum disruptors reached into the frequencies where the ethereals existed and tore them apart. "This is impossible," transmitted one of the dying ethereals. "We are energy itself. Physical weapons cannot harm us." "Your mistake was thinking our weapons are physical," Somin replied, as her disruptors converted another energy being back into basic particles. The most shocking battles were happening in Vorthak space. The lizard-like aliens had ruled through fear for thousands of years. Their scales could deflect almost any known weapon, but human molecular weapons didn't attack the scales. They attacked the atoms that made up the scales. General Tai Ho watched from his command ship as entire Vorthak fleets simply came apart. "It's like watching a child's toys break," he told his staff. "Their ships are built for fighting enemies who use the same physics they do. We're using physics they didn't know existed." But the war wasn't just about superior technology. It was about something the Council had never understood: human tactical thinking. The aliens had spent millions of years fighting the same way. Big ships attacked other big ships. Larger fleets defeated smaller fleets. Victory went to whoever had more resources and firepower. Humans fought differently. Captain Hyunwoo's small strike force appeared in the Vorthak home system not to attack their military bases, but to target their food production centers. Within days, the mighty Vorthak Empire was facing starvation. "They're not following proper military doctrine," complained Admiral Kethavar, the few remaining scales on his head turning grey with stress. "They attack civilians, supply lines, communication, networks. Don't they understand the rules of warfare?" His aide, a young Vorthak officer, looked at the tactical reports with growing fear. "Sir, I don't think they're breaking the rules. I think they're playing a completely different game." Across the galaxy, human forces were demonstrating a type of warfare that made centuries of alien military experience useless. They attacked where they weren't expected. They used weapons that didn't work the way weapons were supposed to work. Most terrifying of all, they seemed to think about battles in ways that alien commanders couldn't predict. Dr. Ji-hoon, now leading the resistance on Kepler 442b, had turned his mining colony into a fortress that defied every known rule of defensive warfare. Instead of building walls, his people had built tunnels that connected to the planet's core. Instead of storing weapons in armories, they had hidden them everywhere, in children's toys, in cooking pots, even in the water supply system. "How do we fight an enemy that turns everything into a weapon?" asked the Zephyrian commander, trying to capture the colony. The answer was simple: they couldn't. As the war continued, something even more dangerous began happening. Other species were joining the human rebellion. The small, peaceful races that the Council had ignored for centuries were watching humans fight and win against impossible odds. The aquatic Beltai, who lived in the ocean worlds, had been slaves to the Vorthak for 2,000 years. When they saw human ships destroying Vorthak fleets, they rose up and destroyed their masters' underwater cities. The plant-based Verdani had been used as living decorations by the ethereals. They learned from human tactics and began poisoning the energy beings by releasing toxic spores into the frequency ranges where ethereals lived. Even the tiny insect-like Buzzkey, whose worlds had been strip-mined by the Zephyrians, found courage in human victory. Their small ships swarmed the crystal vessels like angry wasps, finding weak points that larger weapons had missed. "This is madness," declared High Counselor Vextar from his fortress on Nexus Prime. "The natural order is collapsing. The strong should rule the weak. That is the way of the universe." But Admiral Do-yoon's response, broadcast across all communication channels, showed how wrong the Council had been about the nature of strength itself. "You confused strength with cruelty." Do-yoon's voice echoed through alien command centers. "You thought size meant power. You believed age meant wisdom. But you forgot the most important lesson in the universe: the strong exist to protect the weak, not to devour them." The galaxy was learning that humanity's greatest weapon had never been their impossible technology or their strange tactics. It was their refusal to accept that might makes right, and that lesson was spreading to every corner of known space. The final battle happened at Nexus Prime, where the Galactic Council made their last desperate stand. Every remaining Council ship had gathered around their capital world, thousands of vessels from hundreds of species, all united in their fear of humanity. Admiral Do-yoon approached the massive defensive fleet in his flagship, Soul's Vengeance. To the aliens watching, his ship looked small and unremarkable. They had no idea they were about to witness something that would change the galaxy forever. "This is Admiral Do-yoon of the Terran Defense Force," he broadcast on all frequencies. "So you have one chance to surrender. Lay down your weapons and prepare to face justice for your crimes against humanity. High Counselor Vextar's response came back filled with hatred. Never. The Council has ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. We will not bow to primitive mammals who crawled out of caves yesterday. Du Yun sighed sadly. Then you have chosen your fate. He pressed a single button on his command console. The soul's vengeance began to change. Layers of false armor fell away like flower petals. Hidden sections unfolded from what had appeared to be a simple cruiser. Within minutes, Do Yun's ship had revealed its true size, a massive dreadnought. That dwarfed even the Council's greatest vessels. Impossible, whispered Vextar, watching the transformation through his command center's screens. How did they hide something so large? Around the human flagship, more ships were revealing their true nature. What had looked like a small strike force was actually the most powerful fleet ever assembled. The ancient fleet had finally shown itself completely, and it was magnificent and terrible to behold. The battle that followed wasn't really a battle at all. It was a demonstration of what happened when an unstoppable force met a very movable object. Human weapons that bent reality itself tore through Council defenses like they were made of paper. Ships that could exist in multiple dimensions at once appeared inside alien vessels and destroyed them from within. Captain Somin's fighters moved through the enemy formation like deadly dancers, their pilots enhanced by technology that let them think and react faster than any organic brain should be able to. She watched Council ships explode around her and felt only sadness for the waste of it all. They could have been partners, she said over the communication system. Instead, they chose to be enemies. The end came when Admiral Zhou ship reached Nexus Prime itself. The planet's shields were the strongest known to science, powered by the combined technology of every Council race. They should have been able to stop any attack, but Zhou weapons didn't attack the shields. They attacked the quantum foundation that the shields were built on. The barriers that had protected the Council capital for centuries simply stopped existing. High Counselor Vextar found himself staring at human marines in his own command center. They had appeared without warning, walking through walls that should have been impenetrable. The lead marine, a young woman named Lieutenant Hai Wan, approached his command chair. High Counselor Vextar, she said politely, you are under arrest for crimes against humanity and genocide against multiple species. Vextar's scaled hands shook as he realized the truth. You could have conquered us from the beginning, couldn't you? All this time, you could have destroyed the entire Council. Admiral Zhou Yun's image appeared on the command center's main screen. His weathered face showed no anger, only deep sadness. Yes, we could have. Our ancestors built the ancient fleet to defend against exactly this kind of threat. We had the power to rule the galaxy centuries ago. Then why didn't you? Vextar whispered. Because, Zhou Yun replied simply, strength without justice is just tyranny. We are not you. The surrender of the Galactic Council sent shockwaves through known space. Species that had been enemies for millennia watched as humans did something unprecedented. They offered mercy to those who had tried to destroy them. Ambassador Jinni, freed from her prison, stood before a gathering of representatives from every known species. The great chamber where the Council had voted for humanity's extinction was now filled with beings who had come to hear about something called human justice. The old Council ruled through fear, Jinni announced. The new galactic government will be built on different principles. Every species, no matter how small or different, has the right to exist. Every world has the right to govern itself, and every being has the right to live free from the fear of extinction. Not everyone accepted the new order easily. Some species tried to continue fighting, believing humans would eventually become the same kind of tyrants the Council had been. They learned they were wrong when human ships appeared not to conquer their worlds, but to defend them from other enemies. Captain Hyunwoo, now commanding a mixed crew of humans and reformed Council species, patrolled the outer rim where space. Pirates had once terrorized peaceful traders. His ship carried weapons that could destroy planets, but he used them only to protect the innocent. This is strange, his Zephyrian tactical officer said one day, after they had rescued a merchant convoy from raiders. In the old Council, strength was used to take from the weak. You use your strength to give to them instead. Yunwu smiled as he watched the rescued ships continue safely on their journey. That's what makes us human. We discovered long ago that real strength isn't about what you can destroy. It's about what you choose to protect. Years passed, and the galaxy slowly learned to live under humanity's gentle but firm guidance. The ancient fleet remained hidden but watchful, sleeping lightly and dreaming of better tomorrows. They had become guardians of something precious, the idea that civilization meant protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. And across the stars, beings who had once lived in fear began to hope again,